Good. Om Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Beda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamritaduhe Namaha Om. So today we'll go to the second Shatkam. So as we saw, Madhusudana Saraswati Swami has condensed the entire Gita message in the Dhyana Shloka, and so we are trying to see the flow of the Gita to see how in as crisp short form as possible. Let's see. So we saw that Gita is organized into 3 sections, six chapters each. And the first section, first 6 chapters, Prathama Shatkam, talks mainly about Jiva Tattva and Purusha Prayatna. And it talks about Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga. And mainly it is the individual effort is what is focused. The Madhyama Shatkam talks about Ishvara Tattva, Bhakti Yoga, and Ishvara Anugraha. So the shift is from individual prayatna, like the individual effort, to Ishvara Anugraha. So this is the shift which happens. We saw the Jiva Tattva, right? So we saw, because this is the basic structure we need to understand so that everything falls into place. So we saw that the core is the Jivatma and Atma. These two we'll have to understand correctly, so that some places, like by the word Atma, Krishna will mean Jivatma. Some places by the word Atma, Krishna will mean the original consciousness. Now, we need to be able to distinguish so that we can understand it correctly. So, we all have a gross body, Sthula Sharira, and a subtle body, Sukshma Sharira. The Sthula Sharira is the Deha, the physical body. Sukshma Sharira is the life principle, Prana, and then Indriyas, both Karmendriyas and Jnanendriyas, the organs of action and the organs of senses. And then mind, the emotional faculty, and Buddhi, the intellectual faculty. So all these things put together is what is called as the Sukshma Sharira. And the Karana Sharira is the storehouse of Punya, Samskara, and Jnana. And that is where free will is also there, because free will and all these things go together. So we all have the free will to do things, to decide what to do. And based on what we do, we get Punya or Papa, like based on the merits or demerits. And Samskara, which is the subtle, the subconscious tendencies, right? How much anger we have, how much jealousy we have, how much desire we have, how honest we are, right? How much compassionate we are, how much self-control we have. The habits, the tendencies, those are the samskara. And jnana is the worldview. So the entire spiritual life is basically to improve this, right? We improve this karana sharira. That is why we saw uddared atmana atmanam, right? So when we say uddared atmana atmanam, so that atmana is these two. By the right usage of these, by atmana, atmanam, what do we improve? We improve the causal body, right? So using the Sukshma Sharira and Sthula Sharira, we improve the Karna Sharira. That is what is meant by purification of the Jivatma. So it's all, the entire sadhana is basically for purification or improvement of this layer, right? And then we also have, so initially we identify as the Jivatma and we work on it so that we improve it. And after that, finally, we also give up our individuality to realize ourselves as the pure consciousness. And so this is the approach, right? And this we saw. And based on the Prathama Shatkam, this is the sadhana krama, right? So first we get to know the basics of the Jiva Tattva, right? Using Shravana and Manana. Shravana is basically listening to lectures, reading, all that. And Manana is thinking about it, understanding it, and ensuring that we don't have any doubts. So doubtless knowledge is the result of Manana. Now, once we have understood, yes, this is what it is, then we do karma yoga. We have to do, just knowledge is of these is not enough. We have to do karma yoga. So there we saw nishkama karma, right? And chitta shuddhi. What we get? We get chitta shuddhi. We get samabuddhi, right? Purification of the mind is basically freedom from strong likes and dislikes, and samabuddhi is ability to face ups and downs with poise. Titiksha is being able to forbear, right? So now that will prepare us for meditation. So then dhyana yoga is the next step, where we get mano nigraha, indriya nigraha. So control over the mind, control over the senses, and concentration, chitta ekagrata. Then with that, we are eligible for pursuing jnana yoga. Now this jnana yoga is about the pure consciousness, about atma, right? So this first jnana yoga was about jivatma, right? About the jiva tattva. This jnana yoga is about the atma tattvam, and we realize the brahma atma aikyam. Now that atma jnana will give jivan mukti and videha mukti, right? So freedom from, so when you say jivan mukti, what is jivan mukti? Freedom from the shatripu, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. Freedom from that is jivan mukti, and videha mukti is freedom from all papa punya when the body falls. So this is the template given in the Prathama Shatkam, right, which we saw. Now we'll go to Ishvara Tattva. What is Ishvara Tattvam? Now, Ishvara is the supreme being who identifies himself with the entire universe, right? So this entire universe as one being is what is Ishvara, right? So how is it? Like, all we all have various cells in the body, right? And each cell is a living being of its own right. But then we say I, and the person whom we are kind of the supreme being for this body. So the relationship between us and each cell in the body is very, very similar to the relationship between Ishvara and us, right? So we eat and all the cells get nourished, and then we decide to do something, and of all the cells basically like are directed and to help in that. And then whatever we breathe and all the cells get oxygen, and when the living being dies, all the cells are basically like are dependent upon the living being for their existence, right? So of course that is just an example. So here in case of Ishvara, it is exactly it is very similar, right? Now Ishvara is the supreme being, the eternal being, right? And every living being, this entire universe is a part of him. So there is nothing outside of Ishvara. There is nothing which is outside, right? So this is the idea of Ishvara, the universal being, the whole universe, everything that is in existence, right? Identified as a person, right? And he is the consciousness in all beings, right? It is his life that reflects in all beings. It is his consciousness which reflects in all being, right? So, and he is the material substance of the universe, right? Everything in the universe is made of Ishvara only, right? So, as Sat, he is the material substance of this universe, and as Chit, he is the consciousness in all living beings. And he is omniscient, omnipotent, and compassionate. So, he knows everything that is there in this universe. He knows every small thought in the mind of every Jivatma, and he is omnipotent. He has the capability to destroy the entire universe and recreate it at a mere will, right? So he is omnipotent, everything is under his control, right? And he is compassionate. So he is the real friend of every Jivatma, because every Jivatma is nothing but his own part. It's he himself, right? So just like, uh, can we say each of us is compassionate to our finger, right? If you take a little finger, like, we are all compassionate towards a little finger, right? Why? Because it's our finger, right? And exactly the same way, every Jivatma is nothing but a part of the Lord. The Lord sees himself in all the Jivatmas, and every suffering of every Jivatma, it the Lord feels, right? Like, so in a way, like, of course he has full knowledge, and it's a uh, he, and because of that, suffering is not wrong, but then he is the well-wisher of every part of this entire universe. So he is the well-wisher of every Jivatma, right? And he's a compassionate one, and he manifests through incarnations and saints, right? So when there is a necessity, he himself comes, and he himself fixes things in this world, and he teaches in this world, and that is how we have got this Gita. And he also manifests through the minds of the various saints. And the more saintly a person is, the more manifestation of Ishvara in that, right? And he can be worshipped through any name, form, or ritual, and whichever way a person worships, he responds through the same, right? And he's equally accessible to all living beings. Now, these are some of the highlights of Ishvara Tattva, right? And based on the Madhyama Shatkam, where Ishvara is brought in, what is the way, what is the sadhana krama? The first one, Jnana Yoga, is there, Shravana Manana, and Jiva Tattva, Ishvara. Now, Ishvara Tattva is also included here, and this sadhana krama is there, right? So we know this, we have to understand this, and Karma Yoga becomes Ishvara Arpana Buddhi and Ishvara Prasada Buddhi. Whatever Swami Chinmayananji puts in a very nice way, he says, whatever I do is my gift to God, and whatever situations I face in life is God's gift to me, right? So everything that we do, right, we take the attitude of Ishvara Arpana, and everything that we face in life is Ishvara Prasada. So, and by this attitude, we get Chitta Shuddhi and Samabuddhi Titiksha, the same whatever we gained, we saw as the other Karma Yoga, same thing we gain here, but through Ishvara. Similarly, meditation also, right? So, Ishvara Dhyana is the meditation here. We meditate upon the glories of the Lord, of the Leelas of the God, of the qualities of the Lord. We meditate upon the Lord, Ishvara Dhyana, and we get the same Mano Nigraha, Indriya Nigraha, Chitta Ekagrata, which we saw in the previous sadhana krama. And here we also, the focus is on Ishvara Aveshita Chetasam, Manas and Buddhi, right? So multiple places Krishna says like, yeah, fill your mind and intellect completely with me, and I will take care of the rest, right? So the whole sadhana is to here is to get this done, right? So somehow, like, get the mind and buddhi completely soaked and completely filled with the Lord, and then the Lord says He will Himself give Atma Jnana, and out of which we will get Jivan Mukti, Videha Mukti, we will get. So this is becomes a much easier and simpler approach than the sadhana which was given in the Pratama Shatkam, right? So this is a speciality of the Madhyama Shatkam. And the as we saw the Charama Shatkam, the last 6 chapters are only covering some miscellaneous missed out points and just filling some gaps, so which is okay, right? And this Madhyama Shatkam, and this also is complete in itself, right? The Pratama Shatkam also was complete in itself, and the Madhyam Shatkam is also complete in itself. This is the sadhana krama. And as a person progresses in spiritual life, there are 3 stages which are outlined in the 7th chapter. So, 3 stages of bhakti. So, the first and according to the stage, the worldview will differ, attitude towards work will differ, and attitude towards worship will differ, right? So, what is the first stage is artha and artharthi. So, basically, the devotee comes to the Lord saying to free himself from problems in life, and there is artha bhakta, and artharthi is one who wants certain conveniences in life and he worships the Lord for that. So, which is okay. Like Krishna says, they are also uh, noble people, right? And for such a person, Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara are separate. He considers the Jiva, that is himself, as separate. He considers the Jagat, this world, as separate, and Ishvara as separate. These 3 ideas, he looks at them as separate principles. And he, because of that, he works in the world, in the Jagat, right? And whatever fruits of action which come, he gives it to the Lord in gratitude as Ishvara Prasada Buddhi. So the first stage is Ishvara Prasada Buddhi. Whatever I get is because of the grace of the Lord. So I show my gratitude to the Lord for whatever I get. So Ishvara Prasada Buddhi is the main attitude in the first stage. And whatever, like, you worship the Lord to free from afflictions and to get desirable things. So the main thing is, it is not wrong to go to the Lord for that, because at least you are acknowledging that it's the Lord who gives me everything, right? So using the afflictions in life and using the desirable things in life, we develop a personal relationship with God. Now that is important, right? So prayer is a very powerful way to help us develop a personal relationship with God, right? So even if we want something, if we go and ask the Lord, because we have an attachment to what we want, we are basically engineering our desire or our worldly desire to create a relationship with the Lord. So that is what prayer is about, right? So ultimately, what is going to help us is our relationship with the Lord. But then it is not easy to directly develop relationship with God. So to do that, we use prayer as a tool, right? So that way we have attachment to this world. We want to free ourselves from inconvenient situations. We want some desirable things. Now, the worldly desire is used as a tool to develop a relationship with the Lord through prayer. And eventually, as we start having more and more deeper relationship with the Lord, this worldly desire will drop by itself. Now that is the beauty of prayer. So that itself is the sadhana. That is how it works, right? So using worldly desire as a tool to develop relationship with Lord. So that is how prayer becomes a spiritual sadhana, even though it might be for worldly things, right? And that is only at the first stage. And when a person develops further, he comes to the next stage where he finds that this Jagat is a manifestation of Ishvara. This world is not different from Ishvara. Ishvara is the material cause of this universe, right? So this world is a manifestation of Ishvara, and but then Jiva and Ishvara are still separate, right? And knowing the world as a manifestation of the Lord, we offer work itself to the Lord because the world is not different. So Ishvara Arpana Buddhi comes here, right? So Ishvara Arpana Buddhi is the attitude here. And at this stage, like, we don't worship the Lord to free us from afflictions and desires, because we know everything comes by the will of the Lord, and it is the Lord Himself who comes as all these problems also. So we worship the Lord to give knowledge and strength to calmly face all the ups and downs of life, right? So we worship the Lord to give knowledge and strength to face calmly the ups and downs of life. So this is the second stage of bhakti, right? Now, when a person stabilizes on this, then we go to the next step where the person knows that there is only Ishvara, nothing else. There is nothing that exists other than Ishvara. The Lord is everything, including the self. So we offer the doership of work itself to the Lord in complete surrender, right? So the same, the related to work, it is almost the same as what we saw in the Pratama Shatkam, right? So initially, like, we have Sakama Karma, then after that, we go for Nishkama Karma, right? And then we offer the doership also. So the same way is here also, but here we bring in the Lord. So when you say Sakama Karma, we offer, we say Lord is the Karma Phaladata. And when we come here, we offer the work itself to the Lord. And then here we offer the doership of work to the Lord in complete surrender. We say, like, you are the one who works through me, right? So this is the idea here. And we understand that it is the Lord who is even the self. That is also the Lord only. And now here we don't expect anything. We just worship the Lord as, like, knowing that the Lord is not separate. We just, it's more of gratitude and glorification, just be in awe of the Lord. So without any expectation. So this way, the devotee moves from artha bhakti to jignasu bhakti to jnani bhakti, right? So this is what is the krama. The sadhana, automatically, as a person follows this sadhana, the bhakti sadhana, the person will go from, graduate along this. Now, this progression is easy to understand if we consider, how, as children, our understanding matures, right? What is the relationship between a child and the parents? So when a child is small, let us say a 5-year-old or 8-year-old child, if you ask, do you love your parents? The child will say, yes, I love my parents. If you ask a child, why do you love your parents? The child will say, my parents give me food, they bought me a bicycle, they give me chocolates, they take me to movies, they take me on different trips, they drop me in my friend's birthday party, they pick me up from my friend's birthday party. Like, they'll tell all kinds of things, how the parents are helping them, giving them things. And because of that, I love my parents. Now, which is okay for a child, right? At that level, that answer is fine. Now, the same thing, suppose if you ask a teenager, right? Do you love your parents? the teenager will say, yes, I love my parents. If you ask the teenager, why do you love your parents? Typically the teenager would say, oh, they are so knowledgeable, they like, they are able to they answer my questions whenever I have something. If I want to know something, I go to them, I ask them. The relationship between the parent and the child is more from knowledge. Like the child uh, is loves the parents because of the knowledge, because of the experience that they have, right? And that it now, if that child says, I love my parents because I get this, I get that, people will say, like, what is this? Still, like, you are so selfish. Now when a person becomes like 40 plus, now when you ask that man or a woman, do you love your parents? The person will say yes. Now if you ask a 40-year-old man, why do you love your parents? If that guy says, oh, because my parents have got so much of wealth, and when they die, I'm going to inherit so much of bank balance, so much of wealth they have, like, they are so powerful. If you talk about those and say, because of that I love my parents, it's a very, very bad situation, right? Now, for a child, it is okay to say, I love my parents because my parents give me this, they give me that, you know but then as a 40-year-old person, now you should not be still saying that answer. You should not say, I love my parents because they have got so much of, because they give me this, they give me that, and because they have this, they have that. No, right? So by the time you become 40, if someone asks you, do you love your parents, they should say yes. Why do you love your parents? Because they are my parents. There is no reason beyond that, right? Nishkama bhakti, right? The love for old, decrepit, bedridden parents who even have dementia. They don't even they cannot recognize you. They might be having Alzheimer's. They might have complete. They might have forgotten everything, but then you still love them. You still serve them, not expecting anything in return, right? They might be poor. They might be uneducated. They might be absolutely zero in knowledge, because when memory is gone, then where is knowledge, right? So now if you ask, why do you love your parents, you'll say, like, because they are my parents, that's it, right? Kritagnya, right? Just out of gratitude, just pure, selfless love for love's sake. Now that is the highest level of bhakti. When you have that towards Ishvara, you won't worship Ishvara because Ishvara is powerful, because Ishvara has so much of knowledge. No, right? Worshipping Ishvara because of power is the first level of bhakti, artha and artharthi bhakti. Worshipping Ishvara because of knowledge is the second level of bhakti, jignasu bhakti. Worshipping Ishvara without expecting anything, completely, right? No expectation, that is the jnani bhakti, right? If you ask a jnani, why does he worship Ishvara? He'll say, like, there's no reason for it. I just love him. Love for love's sake, right? That is the highest level of bhakti. We expect that towards our parents as we grow up, as we develop, and the same thing applies as we develop in spiritual life towards Ishvara also, right? Now, this is what is bhakti about, right? You start with considering the Ishvara as the omnipotent person. Then you graduate to considering Ishvara as the omniscient person. Then you graduate to say Ishvara is just the compassion. Like, it's pure love and love for love's sake. Right? So this is the progression which will happen in bhakti. And this whole, the entire middle 6 chapters is focuses on this aspect of spiritual sadhana. And this is there is basically, like, the maturity happens very similar, exactly the same as the previous one. So in the Prathama Shatkam, it is work for work's sake. In the Madhyama Shatkam, it is love for love's sake. That is the difference, right? There it is work for work's sake, here it is love for love's sake. There it is Nishkama Karma, here it is Nishkama Bhakti, right? That is what we are going for. So, having said this, any questions? If anyone has any questions, we can take before going forward. One second. Yeah. Yes, Savitri ji can ask.
This is a question from the previous one.
Mhm.
So you said the worldview or the jnana is in the karna sharira. Is this just a prakriya, or is there any vakyam that supports that?
I would, it is there, basically saying that the knowledge is at that level. Let me get back to you, because I remember seeing a few shlokas which clearly talk about that.
Okay.
I'll get back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go.
Other question is sadhana krama that you said in the
Mm.
jnana yoga one, right?
Mhm.
What does that indicate? I mean, the sadhana krama you said in the
Yeah. So
first jnana
that's,
yoga one.
sadhana krama is basically the sequence of sadhana. What do you
What
get?
is after that, the karma yoga or
Karma yoga, then
that you
meditate,
have put
do
just
karma yoga, do meditation, right?
okay. It
Then,
just is what follows this after you know the
yeah,
jnana.
it's a sequence. Krama means sequence, right? Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Gokul, I
Mm,
have a question.
mm,
So, if all of us are potentially divine, then the
mm.
ultimate goal is
Manifest.
to manifest this divinity.
Mm.
And if that is the case, then there finally it will be one Ishvara who sees everything. So that the seeds that you talked about will get
Mm.
dissolved, and that's the whole. Is that the goal of Ishvara?
See, from the Ishvara point of view, there is no problem at all. Okay. So basically, all the sadhana is only from the point of view of the individual, right? Because this world is perfect, and everything that happens in this world perfectly happens as it is supposed to be, right? Ishvara is omniscient, he is omnipotent, he is compassionate, he knows how to run the world, and he is running the world perfectly. Okay. So there is nothing wrong there, and everything is fine. Problems come because from an individual point of view, we have limited understanding, limited knowledge, limited perception. We don't know why things happen the way they are happening, but Ishvara knows, right? And we don't, our knowledge is very, very limited. Our scope is very limited. And because of that, we find defects in this universe. Because of that, we think, no, this is not how it's supposed to be, right? So when you say sadhana, right? Sadhana is basically to get this understanding, right? To get a bigger picture. That is why you say like sarva karma khilam partha jnane parisamapyate, right? So when you get the knowledge of what is this, why it is happening, what, then you find like, oh, there is no problem at all. Everything has been happening perfectly like clockwork, right? So the whole idea is to develop this deeper understanding, broader understanding. So in the Prathama Shatkam, we understand how the universe works, right? And in the second one, we say, we know the Lord knows how to run this universe. He takes care of everything, right? So it is a law of karma in the Prathama Shatkam, and here it is the knowledge of the Lord in the Madhyama Shatkam, right? So ultimately, if you see, there is no problem. Okay, there is no problem at all. The problem is with a limited view. right? And identification with an individual entity. That is the problem.
So when I get that worldview and
Mhm.
really realization, there are
Mhm.
realized souls. They
Mhm.
are they are nothing but Ishvara. Then is that what
No,
it is? No.
see, Ishvara is always different from Jiva. Okay. As long as you consider yourself as an individual, right? The Jiva is different from Ishvara. See, it is like the classic, this example given is the wave and the ocean, right? So now the ocean is there and there are so many waves. Now the waves can never be the ocean, right? Waves are waves, ocean is ocean. Ocean is all the waves put together plus a lot more is the ocean, right? That is exactly is what the Ishvara is. All the jivas put together plus a lot more. The
When
the entire combination or all the jivas put together, this entire universe, everything is only a part of Ishvara. Now, as wave, the wave is wave. As ocean, the ocean is ocean. But then both are made of the same water. Both are consciousness, right? So, from the point of view of consciousness, pure consciousness, the wave is also consciousness, the ocean is also consciousness. So, that is where the Jiva Ishvara Aikyam happens. Okay, not otherwise. As long as individuality is there, Jiva and Ishvara are different.
so, what is the ultimate aim of the ocean? Is not to have any waves.
No, nothing. So, see, the understanding is the goal, okay, for the Jivatma. Okay. Now, doesn't mean, see, when we say, when you, see, basically, no, no, we eliminate, we say, okay, we eliminate Maya, we discard Maya and say, okay, this is ignorance. And then that is only to understand the universal. So the separation of Maya or the world from Ishvara is only at an intellectual level for the sake of identifying Ishvara. Okay. Once Ishvara is identified, once like we have known, okay, yeah, this is what is Ishvara and this is what is pure consciousness. Once it is identified, like we have to bring back this world, we have to bring back Maya and say, yes, now this is what is the whole thing. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna puts in a very nice way. He says, to reach the terrace, you have to say, this is a step, this is the next step, this is the next step, this is the next step. But once you reach the terrace, like you are not eliminating the steps. You are saying, yes, the terrace is made out of the same mortar and brick as the steps also, right? So it is only a process. So that is something which we have to be very, very aware of. Eliminating the world is only a part of the process, right? So we are just to understand Ishvara, we are saying this is the world, this is Ishvara. So eliminate the world, identify Ishvara. Then after that, we understand that the world is also nothing, not different from Ishvara, right? We have to bring it back and reconcile. So now looking at the universal level, like why is all these things happening? Like, so this whole universe is a spontaneous expression of the joy and creativity of the Lord, right? The universe is a spontaneous expression of the joy and creativity of the Lord. Now, if we have the bigger picture or if we have faith in the Lord, then there is no problem. We don't see any problem. Problem comes only when we are our looking at as our small circle with a limited understanding, without knowing the purpose of life, without knowing the purpose of this universe, right? Then we see that everything is wrong, everything is bad, and there is problem, there is suffering, there is this, that, all those problems come, right? Because of our limited understanding. See, simple thing. Now we keep saying, okay, why is there suffering in this world? Like the answer is like, why? What is wrong with suffering in the world? Right? Pleasure is not the goal of life. The very question, why is there suffering, goes with the assumption that pleasure is the goal. But that is where the problem is. We have misunderstood the goal of life. We think pleasure is the goal of life. So every problem we start complaining about, right? So we look upon suffering as a problem, but suffering is not a problem, right? Going through ups and downs of life is not a problem. That is how life is. Life is designed that way because the aim of life, the goal of life is not pleasure. The goal of life is wisdom, right? Now, once you understand that wisdom is the goal of life, then suffering does not become a problem anymore. You don't look upon suffering as a problem at all, right? Yes, life will have ups and downs because that is not the goal. The goal is wisdom. And from the point of view of wisdom, you see that it is always a upward journey. That's what Krishna says. Neha Bikrama Nashosti Pratyavayona Vidyate Swalpam Apyasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat. So, when you look upon wisdom as the goal, and when you see how, from the point of view of wisdom, how you go, how your life goes, it is always an upward journey, right? Sarva karma khilam partha jnane parisamapyate. Every action, everything which you do in life, whether it is successful or failure, wisdom always keeps going in the positive direction only, right? And that is the goal of life, right? The goal of life is wisdom. And in every endeavor in life, if in every venture, some will be successful, some will be failure. But then from both of them, you learn the lesson and you keep going forward. So there is always a positive progress in life when you look upon from the point of view of wisdom. So there is nothing wrong in this world. The problem is we have misunderstood pleasure as the goal of life. So we say, why is there pleasure? Why is there pain? Why is this ups and downs? Why is there success? Why is there failure? Like, there is no rule which says you should have only success always, because success is not the goal of life. Goal of life is wisdom. So when you look at from that point of view, you see that from every situation you keep learning lesson. So the purpose of life is served. The purpose of the universe is perfect. The universe is perfect to serve the purpose of wisdom. So this understanding, if you get, then you will find everything is falling into place. Right? You see the point? So the whole problem is the wrong assumption that pleasure is the goal of life. Success is the goal of life. No. Right? That is not the goal of life.
I was just looking at the North Star where everybody is realized like the goal of life. Then are there no wave identity and it's only the water. So is that the ultimate goal of Ishvara or whoever created?
So see, basically the whole thing is a Leela. Okay. There will always, see, from the Ishvara point of view, even having Ajnanis is not a problem. That is also part of the whole game. Understand? Right? There in this universe, there will always be some people who are Ajnanis, some people who are Jnanis. And in fact, the Maya's game runs because of the Ajnanis. Right? So that is how the world runs. So, and in fact, Ishvara does not see Ajnanis as a problem at all. Right? Understand? From Ishvara's point of view, he does not even look upon Ajnanis as a problem. Like, yes, they are a part of this universe and they are a part of the whole system. Some will be Jnanis, some will be Ajnanis. So look at it this way. See, evolution has happened. Right? We all know, okay, this whole universe, life evolves. Now, just because there are human beings, does that mean there will not be any amoeba, there will not be any frogs, there will not be any dogs, right? There will not be monkeys. Yes, monkeys also will be there, right? Human beings also will be there, monkeys also will be there. That is the whole scheme of the whole thing, right? Even though we say there is evolution and life evolves, and finally we have human beings, but then we see even the most primitive protozoa is also there, no? Just because life has evolved to have human beings doesn't mean like there are no protozoa, there are no lower organisms, because without lower organisms, like the whole life system will not exist. You cannot have an entire universe full of only human beings without animals. Not possible, right? So the for the spiritual point of view, it is exactly the same, right? Just like how biological evolution, right? You have human beings, and you also have the entire spectrum of the whole evolution is there, because that is what makes this entire universe, right? So similarly, even from the spiritual point of view, there will be jnanis, there will be ajnanis, there will be thieves, there will be murderers, there will be people who are given to kao piyo maja karo. The entire spectrum will be there. That is how the world will run, right? It is okay, right? So from Ishvara point of view, it is okay. It is okay to have all kinds of people, right? Understand?
Okay.
So,
Okay. Understood.
right. So that is why even the most stupidest person, even the most vilest person, right, has a place in this universe, right? You cannot eliminate him. He has a place in this universe. He has a place in the heart of the Lord. The Lord has compassion towards everyone, right? So we cannot slight even the most cantankerous person. Just because a person has made a mistake, or just because a person is given to evil ways, we cannot like eliminate that person, or we cannot ditch the person, right? And particularly the Lord cannot forsake anyone, because there is nothing in this universe which is outside him. There is a very beautiful story, like so a king was there. He was very proud, and his preceptor, his teacher, saw that this king is becoming proud. So he told the king, "Hey Rajan, you are greater than God." And king thought, "Oh, is it so? How am I greater than God?" Then the guru said, "See, if someone does a big mistake, you can excommunicate that person from your kingdom. You can say, like, you are no longer a citizen of this country, and get out of my country." And you can excommunicate a person and push someone out of your country. But God can never do that, because he is not capable of excommunicating anyone. He is not capable of rejecting anyone. A finite entity, like a finite king, can reject a person saying you are no longer a citizen of this country. But God is not capable of doing that, because everything is his. Like, how can he eliminate anyone? How can he reject anyone? That is why the Lord can reject no one. It is only the Lord who is not capable of rejecting anyone. He cannot reject anyone, because where will he reject? There is nothing outside him, right? So he is the only one, like, who cannot reject anyone. Whatever it is, whoever it is, the Lord cannot reject that person, because there is nothing outside him, right? So the whole thing is a part of the Leela. It's all a big Leela, and everything is a part of the game. And the Lord is comfortable with everything. It is only we who feel, oh, this guy is a evil guy, he is bad. Like, that's because, like, we are not able to handle him. That is why we say we are not comfortable with a evil person, right? Like, why are we not comfortable with someone who is who is not good, who is evil, so-called papi? Why are we not comfortable with him? Because we are not able to handle him. We don't know how to handle him, right? Whereas the Lord can handle everyone, and the Lord has no problem. So he has no problem with anyone in this universe, neither the ajnani nor the jnani. In fact, like, from the Lord's point of view, like, there is this distinction does not exist, right? But then it seems like contradiction, because we will see in the 7th chapter where he says the jnani is dearest to me. It is because the jnani considers the Lord as dearest. That's all. The jnani doesn't see a difference between him and the Lord, and so he is like it's basically reflection. The Lord just reflects every person's attitude back. That's all. It's just like a mirror. Otherwise, like to the Lord, everyone is just the same, right?
Okay, so it's always heterogeneous. There won't be any situation where everything is homogeneous.
It will not be.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, good.
Gokulji,
Huh.
one more question.
Hmm.
The way that these Shatkams are presented, right? The
Hmm.
first is Karma Yoga and the second one is the Bhakti,
Huh.
right? But even for the Karma Yogi who does the karma as a Nishkama, he's
Mhm.
following the Dharma, which itself is a manifestation of Ishvara or the God.
Yes,
So in
yes.
that sense, it is like intertwined. Both are intertwined.
Huh.
Same.
But then he doesn't consider it as a manifestation of Ishvara.
Correct, correct. It is just that, but he's for him, Dharma is the tallest, or whatever he follows. Dharma is completely compliant with Dharma because he's doing karma. When you say karma yoga, it's not hurting anybody, so it is in compliance with Dharma, right? Sorry, we probably got
So,
disconnected.
yeah. Sorry, I got disconnected for some time. You're able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. So see the Pratama Shatkam, the of Ishvara doesn't come. So of course the truth is that it is Ishvara who is everything, and everything is a manifestation of Ishvara. But then that is not taken into consideration in the Pratama Shatkam. So the pure Karma Yogi, right, who he doesn't consider Ishvara. So he looks at law of karma, but doesn't look at Lord as the karma phaladata. That comes only in the Madhyama Shatkam.
Okay. In other words, are they independent, or I was asking that you need the two to go to jnana? That's all. Or it is
Huh.
just, even though I don't know, as a karma yogi, when I do that, I think dharma the most important.
Mhm.
Ishvara is kind of intertwined in it, and it's actually a part of it. I may not recognize it.
Huh. So that's what in the 12th chapter, that's what Arjuna asks, right? And Krishna says, yes, it is possible, but then it is difficult. Purely following Pratama Shatkam
Okay.
is fine, because that is what Buddhists do, right? That is what Buddhism is about, right? The Pratama Shatkam, if you look at it, it is almost the same as Buddhism, right? It becomes Vedanta only in the Madhyama Shatkam, where we bring in Ishvara.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, madam, you have a question?
எஸ் நமஸ்தே சார்.
Namaste.
இப்போ கிளாஸ்ல வந்து நம்ம பேரண்ட்ஸ் கிட்டே நம்ம வந்து டியூட்டி செய்யணும்னு சொன்னீங்க. ஆனா அப்போ அவங்க கிட்ட நம்ம எந்த எதிர்பார்ப்பு, இன்க்ளூடிங் காட் ஆல்சோ, நம்ம
Mhm.
எந்த எதிர்பார்ப்பும் அவங்க கிட்ட அப்போ நம்ம வச்சுக்க கூடாதா?
No.
நமக்கு அப்போ அவங்களே எல்லாம் பார்த்து செய்வாங்கங்கிற நம்பிக்கையோட அப்ப நம்ம இருக்கணுமா?
இல்ல. நம்ம அவங்களுக்கு எல்லாம் செய்யணும். ஏன்னா அவங்க செய்வாங்கன்றது எதிர்பார்ப்பு தானே.
ஓகே
அந்த எதிர்பார்ப்பு தான் இருக்கக்கூடாது.
ஓகே. ஓகே. ஓகே.
அது
நம்ம
அது வந்து ஆக்சுவலா யார்கிட்ட இருந்து எதிர்பார்க்க கூடாது. பேரண்ட்ஸ்ட இருந்தும் சரி, பிள்ளைங்கிட்ட இருந்தும் சரி, பேர பிள்ளைங்கிட்ட இருந்தும் சரி, யார்கிட்ட இருந்தும் எதுவும் எதிர்பார்க்க கூடாது. நம்ம கடமையை நம்ம செய்யணும், அவ்வளவுதான்.
ஓகே சார்.
ம்.
அப்ப இதுதான் அன்செல்ஃபிஷ்னஸ்.
ஆமா.
ஓகே. அண்ட் ஒன் ஸ்மால் ரெக்வெஸ்ட். லாஸ்ட் சுவாமிஜியோட கிளாஸ் ரெக்கார்டிங் கொஞ்சம் நீங்க குரூப்ல போட்டு விடணும் சார்.
ஓகே. Avik is handling that. Avik.
ப்ளீஸ்.
சொல்றேன்.
ஓகே.
Thank you.
தேங்க்யூ சார். தேங்க்யூ.
Okay. Okay, fine. So if this much is clear, I think we should be able to easily go through the slokas. So let us look at the verses. So the 7th chapter starts with, it's called Jnana Vijnana Yoga, and this is from where the idea of Ishvara starts. Though we saw that in the 4th chapter, in reply to Arjuna's question, Krishna had mentioned, right, about the Avatara Tattva and that, but then there was more of diversion than of the regular flow which the Lord had intended. So the actual Ishvara Tattva comes from the 7th chapter onwards only. Okay. So here he says, like, I will give you the theory and practice of knowledge, knowing which nothing more is needed. So though he says jnana vijnana. So jnana is the theoretical knowledge, vijnana is the practical knowledge. So Sri Ramakrishna puts in a very nice way. He says, knowing about milk is jnana, drinking milk and getting healthy is vijnana, right? So that is the difference. Even if you know that this is what milk is, milk contains so much of energy, it is so much of vitamins, it is so healthy, like it has so much of calcium, knowing all the milk, seeing the milk, right? All those things are fine. But then that is jnana, knowledge about milk. But then you will not gain the benefit of milk just by that jnana. For that, you have to practice. You have to drink the milk. So drinking the milk is vijnana, where you apply it in life, right? So your behavior and attitude should change based on the jnana. That is vijnana, right? Change of behavior and attitude is vijnana. So, and here the knowledge he gives about Ishvara. So what is the knowledge? So he says there are two prakritis, lower prakriti, which is called apara prakriti, and para prakriti, which is the higher prakriti. And the lower prakriti is all the three lower shariras put together, right? So we say stula sharira, sukshma sharira, karna sharira, right? That's what he says. Like he says 5 elements, which is basically the stula sharira, mind and intellect, which is basically the sukshma sharira, and he talks about the ahankara, which is the karna sharira. So all those 8 ashtada prakriti is the lower one, and pure consciousness is the higher one, right? That is my higher nature, which is pure consciousness. So this idea of pure consciousness he brings in here and says that is a higher prakriti, and both these put together of all living beings is what is Ishvara. He says these two are the constituents of all beings, and there is nothing other than these. And then he says both these are my prakriti. What does that mean? So as an individual jiva, a jiva will have a body, a mind, and a karna sharira, a ego. Now all the bodies of all the jivas, all the minds of all the jivas, and all the karna sharira of all the jivas put together is the Lord's lower prakriti, and the pure consciousness is the higher prakriti. So that way the Lord is a universal being, right? So he is the essence of everything. So everything that exists put together is the Lord, right? And each jiva basically claims a small part of that at all the levels and says, this is me, right? That is the idea here. And what is the cause of samsara? The samsara is basically suffering, right? What is the cause of suffering? Like basically he says there are 3 modes of prakriti, the sattva, rajas, and tamas, and because deluded by these, which is called maya, the world does not know me who is beyond them, right? So now here the Lord is in 2 aspects of the Lord. One is as pure consciousness, the other one is as the universal being, right? So because of the delusion created by maya, the jivatmas don't know the universal entity and the pure consciousness, and because of that, right, that is the cause of samsara, right? And then what is the remedy? Here the Lord says bhakti is the remedy for samsara. So it is very difficult to get over Maya, right? Whereas if he says my devotees cross over delusion. So this idea of my devotees starts from here, right? So when you say my devotee, what does it mean my devotee? First is you acknowledge that Ishvara is there. This universal being is there, right? And moment you acknowledge and understand the universal being, then devotion will come automatically, right? So, and then he says there are 4 types of devotees, right? Arthi, Artha, and Atharthi, and Jignasu, Jnani. We have seen it in detail, right? And he says of these, Jnani is dearest to me because he has only me as the goal and is fully established in me, right? So all others have got different goals. The Artha has a goal of becoming free from suffering. The Artharthi has a goal of getting some desirable things. And even the Jignasu has a goal of getting knowledge, whereas the Jnani doesn't have anything else. He just says, the Lord is my goal, right? So having the Lord as the only goal for the Jnani, and he has already attained the Lord, because the Lord is never unattained. So when you say God is the goal, it's a very, very funny thing, right? It is as if, there is something and we want to attain, but he is the universal being, so he is always attained, right? There is no time when the Lord is not attained. So when we say Jnani has the Lord as the goal, it basically indicates that he already has the, intellectually also he has understood that he is not different from the Lord, right? That he is an integral part of the Lord, never separate from the Lord. And he is fully established in me, right? With that. So, Ishvara is basically, it's about understanding. Once you understand Ishvara correctly, then you are a jnani and you know that you are not separate from the Lord at all, right? And this happens over several births. So after maturing over several births, the jnani surrenders to me. So when you say jnani surrenders to me, like, of course, because of surrender to the Lord, he has become a jnani. So that way, like, the usage of words, we should not we should not misunderstand. And what does he understand? Knowing Vasudeva as that appears as everything, right? Sarvam Vasudevam iti, right? So Vasudeva, the word Vasudeva has got 2 parts. So Vasu and Deva. So Vasu is like one which is all pervading, right? That is Vasu. So which is basically the material cause of this universe, right? And Deva is the consciousness. The Deva means light, the light of consciousness. So Vasudeva basically means like both the material cause and the intelligent cause of this universe, both insentient and sentient. Everything is nothing but the Lord himself. So that is the meaning of the word Vasudeva, right? So basically, the Lord is everything, both the insentient world and the consciousness principle. There is nothing which is other than the Lord. Now, knowing that is basically knowledge, right? Vasudeva Sarvam iti. Now, then after telling this, he talks about Sakama Bhakti, right? So people who worship for desires, right? And the Lord says, like, whatever word this thing prayer, I am the one who answers all the prayers, but they are desiring after things, and so it is okay, and I provide that, and eventually the person will hopefully desire after the Lord himself. And here he says, like, whoever worships through any name, form, and ritual, I respond back through the same name, form, ritual, and strengthen that faith, so that eventually they will come towards the Lord. It's the whole thing is a part of the process, right? And he makes a statement like, foolish people consider me only my manifested state, that is the world, right? And veiled by Maya, like the unmanifest, that is beyond the world, the transcendental nature is not known, right? And he says, like, it's because of you are deluded by the duality of desire and aversion. So you have to ultimately knowing the Lord for what he is, right? That is the ultimate one. That is what finally you will go, and that is done by slowly, gradually you will go to Sakama Bhakti, right? That is the sorry, this is Sakama. You will gradually go to Nishkama Bhakti, whereas veiled by Maya, it will be Sakama Bhakti. Now, a person who has done virtuous deeds become freed from the delusion of the duality, from desire, aversion, success, failure, and all that, and they worship me. They get to know me in entirety and think of me even at the time of death. So he kind of sows the seed to the next chapter. So that is one thing you can see in the Gita. Like the last, in the last one or two shlokas will be the seed to the next chapter always, right? So usually, like by reading those, that seed, you'll be able to better understand the next chapter. So anyway, so Nishkama Bhakti is what is talked about here, right? And he mentions this, and he also mentions a few words which trigger Arjuna to ask the question, and that is what starts the next chapter. And Krishna introduces multiple words: Brahman, Adhyatma, Karma, Adibhuta, Adidaiva, Adiyajna. He says you should, like, these, all these are known, should be known, and also like the time of death, whatever a person thinks, that's what he becomes. So he introduces that, and Arjuna asks question, what are these things? And these are just nothing but different words for the same concepts what we have seen before. Okay, so Brahman is a supreme consciousness, Adhyatma is nothing but Jivatma, and Karma is, like we saw, right, like Punya, Samskara, and Jnana, which is the one which constitutes the Jivatma and which constitutes the cause of the birth, right? Adibhuta is nothing but the Kshara Purusha, which is basically the Sthula and Sukshma Sharira together is called Adibhuta. Adidhaiva is the Purusha, which is the reflected consciousness, right, which we saw. Adiyajna is Ishvara, the entire universe put together, right? That is, so basically the same, different words for the same concepts, which is just to, like, it gives a framework of whatever we have been talking about in a summarized way. And then this chapter, the main focus is that a person attains to what he remembers at the time of death, right? At the moment of death, the conscious mind stops functioning, only the subconscious mind will function. And so whatever a person remembers at the time of death, right, that is what decides the gati, what happens in the next, right? And those who remember the Lord at the time of death will reach the Lord. So now, because of that, there is a system of yoga where the yogis have developed a system where they will sit in meditation, control the senses and the mind, draw the prana in the head, right? Focus on the Bhrumadhya and all that, utter Om, and leave the body while meditating upon the Lord. So this way, if they leave the body, yes, they will attain the Lord because they have left the body by thinking about the Lord. But this whole thing requires a complete life dedicated to this, and it's a very, very difficult, right, to practice this, to get this done, and by this way to attain the Lord. So he doesn't eliminate it. He says, yes, this is possible. This is a prevailing practice which is there, but it is a very, very difficult. And then he says there is an easier way. What is the easier way? Develop the habit of meditation with devotion. Always remember the Lord, filling the mind and intellect with the Lord. Then automatically, at the time of death, you will remember the Lord and you will reach the Lord, which is an easier approach, right? Which is what is prescribed in the Gita. So it doesn't rule out the truth of the first one. He says, yes, that path is there, right? But then you don't need to struggle for that. Anyway, death is going to come. And when death comes, you have to remember the Lord. And if you remember the Lord always while living, then automatically you will remember the Lord when you die. So this is the Gita's way of sadhana, right? So this is the prescribed way. Okay. And then he compares two types of goals, the world and God. And so reaching the Lord, there is no return to this transitory painful world. All other realms like heaven or any other Pitruloka, so many things which are believed in the scriptures. Wherever you go, you have to come back. And the Lord can be attained by complete devotion to Him, in whom all beings exists and by whom everything is pervaded. So the Vishwarupa Ishvara, right? So you understand Ishvara as, so the definition of Ishvara is this: in whom all beings exists and by whom everything is pervaded, right? That is the definition of Ishvara. And by worshipping and by being devoted to the Lord, you reach the goal, right? And he also talks about the bright path, dark path. And usually Vedanta Acharyas, we don't give too much of importance to that. It is the Vedic concepts which are there, which are elaborated in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and also in the Brahma Sutras also. And then the goal of Upasana, what is the glory of Upasana? Sorry. So the yogi who knows this goes beyond the merits that is got by doing yajna, dana, tapas as prescribed in the Vedas and attains the supreme abode. So the Vedas prescribe so many yajnas and tapas and dana, so many things like the Vedika way of yajna, dana, tapas, right? So the Karma Yoga has got a different way of yajna, dana, tapas, which is Gita's prescription. But here it is the yajna, dana, tapas as prescribed by the Vedas in a ritualistic way. So he says, like, whatever punya a person gets by doing all rituals and everything, like the yogi goes much beyond that. So basically he says you don't need to do all that. You don't need to do any of those things. All that you need to do is to remember the Lord and serve the Lord as the person, as this universe, and that is the way to the Lord. So this is he gives this hint, and he's going to elaborate that in the 9th chapter. So 9th chapter is an elaboration of this last shloka. So that is what he calls as Rajavidya, Rajaguhyam. Rajavidya means the supreme path, right? The highway. And Rajaguhya means the supreme secret, right? So basically it is secret because it is sacred. Now he says, what is the secret? He says, as you have faith in me, I will give you this knowledge by which you will attain me. So this is the same as what he told in the 7th chapter. 7th chapter also starts with the same thing. He says, like, I will tell you and give you a knowledge by which you will attain everything. And there also it says this is a very secretive knowledge. Here also it says the same thing. And it's a very easy way to attain the Lord. And by this you will become free from all sins, all evil. Now, what is the way? So first is the nature of God. So it's very, very similar to the 7th chapter, right? 7th chapter also, like, first this knowledge was told, and then the nature of God was given, right? So the template wise, it is almost the 7th chapter and 9th chapter are very, very similar, right? So he says, all this world is pervaded by me in the unmanifest form. All beings exist in me. And at the end of every kalpa, right, every creation cycle, everything is withdrawn into my prakriti, and at the beginning everything comes forth from my prakriti. I project this world and all beings using my prakriti, but all these do not limit me. I am not affected by them. Everything is done by prakriti in my mere presence. So this is the Ishvara. What is Ishvara? Who is Ishvara? And what is Prakriti and how the whole thing is there, like what is the relationship with this universe. Sorry. So all those things is covered as the nature of the Lord. Then what is the nature of bondage? Now, avajananti mamoda prakritim tanumashrita. So basically resorting to the identity with the body, which is actually Prakriti, fools disregard their own and my real nature as consciousness. So giving importance to the body, right? Giving that is the whole problem. The core reason for bondage is identification with the Sthula and Sukshma Sharira, right? So identification with the Sthula Sukshma Sharira is the core cause for all problems and bondage. And because of that, overcome by the tamasic and rajasic nature, they are deluded and they have, goals in life based on body and based on the body, their activities, their knowledge, everything is based on just this physical universe, just by because they identify with the body, right? Now, the people of sattvic nature, they know me as the origin of beings and worship me, right? So they basically focus on the pure consciousness. They worship me in various ways, like singing my glories, performing austerities, bowing down in devotion, and they worship me in a particular form or as the all-pervading Vishwarupa or as formless. In all ways, right? The devotees worship the Lord, and he says he is everything. I am the father, I am the mother, supporter, goal, controller, witness, abode. He gives a full list, right? And I am everything of this universe, and all mundane and spiritual results come from me alone, right? So I am the master of this universe. I am everything in this universe. This, right? So the Lord describes himself, and like, and this Lord can be worshipped in so many ways, right? That is what he says. Then he again talks about Sakama Bhakta and Nishkama Bhakta, right? So Sakama Bhaktas, he describes everything in this world is transitory, and even those who seek enjoyments in heaven, right, they also will have to come back when their merits are exhausted, and people get results based on what or whom they worship. Even though I am the one who answers all the prayers, but I give what people ask for. Like, and when people ask for only small worldly things, I give them that, but then there is an eternal cycle. You never get out of that. And then there are people who worship me with unwavering devotion without even caring for themselves. To them, I personally take care of those people. Right? Ananyas chintayanto mam yejanav paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Right? That's what he says. And with pure mind, pure-minded devotion, if a person offers a leaf, flower, fruit, or even water, I accept that. The famous shloka, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhaktya Prayaschiti Tadaham Bhakti Upahritam Ashnami Prayatatmanaha. And so the beauty of the Gita sadhana is that worship using Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, that is only a practice. It's a simulation. The actual one is offering everything to the Lord, right? Yat karoshi yadashnasi yajjuhosi dadasiyati yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam, right? So whatever you contribute or consume, whatever you do as yajna, dana, tapas, do it as an offering to me, and you will be freed from all bondages of action. You will develop renunciation, you will become liberated, and you will attain me. So basically, the puja that we do is a practice so that the real world, when we live, we do everything in the real world as an offering to the Lord, right? So whatever we do in this world, we have to do it as an offering to the Lord. Now, a practice for that is what we do in the puja room, where we offer something to the Lord so that we align the mindset, so that we do the actual work which is be done outside the puja room, right? So that is Gita's vision, right? So he says, I am equal to everyone, and those who worship me with selfless devotion dwell in me, and I dwell in them. And then the glory of bhakti is given. Even if a person with wicked behavior starts to sincerely worship me, he should be considered as a good person. Very soon he will become righteous and attain peace. My devotee never perishes. Name bhaktah pranashyati, he says, right? And there is no restriction based on birth for devotion. Everyone can attain the supreme goal, right? There is no restriction at all. Whereas, like if you take, for example, for any rituals and all, there will be restrictions. That's what he says, right? And also work, different people have in this world have got different kinds of duties, roles, work, and all that. Whereas devotion is common to everyone, right? That's what he says. And with me as the goal, engage me with me steadfast with the intellect, emotions, action, and identity, you will reach me, right? So basically, this Rajaguhyam, the royal secret. What is royal secret? Nishkama Bhakti towards Vishwarupa Ishvara. So this is the royal secret. Now, there is some interpretation where the royal secret is also the Avatara Tattva is also considered as a royal secret. So that is also another interpretation, another way of looking at it. But overall, what I feel is like the essence of the Gita, because this is the 9th chapter, which is the center of the Gita. And this shloka, Manmana bhava mat bhakto matyaji mam namaskru kuru mame vaishisi yuktvevam atmanam mat parayanah. This is considered as a central shloka in the Gita, right? The last shloka in the 9th chapter, that is the middle part of the middle shloka in the Gita, right at the center. And that exactly the same shloka is repeated again in the 18th chapter, 65th shloka. So this is a kind of summary of the entire Gita again, right? So this is the 9th chapter, Rajavidya, Rajaguhya Yoga, right? Now, after that, he goes to the Vibhuti Yoga, right, where he says, he who knows me as the birthless, beginningless Lord of the universe is freed from all sins and all. So now he has told that, okay, like he is the Vishwarupa, he is everything. So the rest of the next 2 chapters are basically elaboration of that, right? So in the 10th chapter, the Lord tells his his own glories, right? And in the 11th chapter, he gives a demo, right? He gives a audio visual demonstration to Arjuna. So both 10th and 11th chapters are just elaborations of the idea that everything is the Lord, right? So he says all qualities, right? Everything arises from me alone, and this entire universe has come from me. And the why. So this is an important section in the 10th chapter. So he says the wise worship me with love, knowing me as the origin of all. Their mind and senses are absorbed in me. They talk about me to each other, and they take delight in me. So satsanga is mentioned in this, right? So where basically like you get together and talk about the Lord and the Gita, his teaching and all that. So basically that is satsanga. And he says, to those who lovingly worship and serve me, I give buddhi yoga by which they come to me. So buddhi yoga, this word was used as a karma yoga, right? As a synonym for karma yoga in the Pratama Shatkam, right? The word buddhi yoga was used there. The Lord says, if you worship me, if you love me and worship me, like that detachment and all those things, like I will give you. And also he says, out of compassion for them, by abiding in their hearts, I enlighten them with the luminous lamp of knowledge, destroying their ignorance. So basically, like you will get jnana, the Lord will give jnana if you follow this path. That is what he's going to again reiterate in the 12th chapter. So basically, like by following bhakti, right? By following. And so when you say bhakti here, as per the Gita, it is not just sitting in the puja room and doing puja. That is not bhakti. Vishwarupa Ishvara is the Ishvara. So worshipping Vishwarupa Ishvara by offering all your actions, doing all your duties as an offering to the Lord, that is what is bhakti according to Gita. And by doing that bhakti, the Lord says, I will give you knowledge by shining forth from within, right? So this is a very important shloka where, this is what Sri Ram Krishna says. He says, like, why do you want to, worry so much about jnana? You worship the Lord, you become friendly with the Lord, and you ask the Lord, you tell me, oh Lord, tell me what is the truth. And the Lord will tell you. So that is exactly what Krishna says here. He says, to the people who worship me and who are devoted to me, I will give them the knowledge, he says. He says, like, they don't need to, work towards jnana yoga. I will give them that jnana by myself, right? Out of compassion, I will give. So bhakti will give jnana, right? Krishna gives that assurance. And then Arjuna asks for elaboration, and Krishna elaborates, right? Like big descriptions, which basically, like, it's more helps for meditation. So the whole 10th and 11th chapters, there is so much of description, which is mainly for to help in meditation. But many of the ideas are archaic and based on the society and the culture at that time. So many of them might not be even relevant to us now. For example, he says, like, I am the best of everything. Like of the horses, I am Ucheshravas. Of the cows, I am Kamadenu. Of the elephants, I am Airavata. Now, the people, the society of that time would have been able to, correlate with these a lot more. And today we don't live amidst horses and elephants and cows, and so it looks very odd to us, right? But then it would have made a lot of sense to Arjuna, who lived in the social environment at that time, right? So many of these things are based on the society, culture, the environment of his time, so which we might not be able to correlate that much. But then we have to take the hint and we have to say, okay, Krishna himself says, right, wherever, whatever being there is great, prosperous, powerful, know that to be a part of my splendor. So that is a summary of the entire description of whatever is told in the full Vibhuti Yoga. And also much of the Vishwarupa Ishvara Darshana also, like, much of it is basically summarized in this one shloka, right? So this also will go through quickly, right? So the Vishwarupa Ishvara Darshana, like Arjuna, and this is, okay, by the way, this is a summary of Paramarthananji, okay? Like, so every place I have given that one line description, that is from Paramarthananji, right? In most of the cases, right? This one line descriptions, and whatever is below is what I have kind of elaborated what Paramarthananji has given as the summary into taking reference from the Gita. Okay. So this is exactly what I just did not make any change to what Paramarthananji has put. So Arjuna desires to see the universal form, and Krishna grants the divine eye, and Sanjaya gives a description first, because Sanjaya is also given the divine eye by Vyasa, right? Sanjaya, because here, if you see here, Arjuna sees it, and Sanjaya sees through Arjuna's eyes the universal form, right? So basically, like Vyasacharya, in the beginning of the Mahabharata war, he gives Sanjaya the knowledge or the capability to even look through everyone's point of view or through everyone's eyes, right? So that is why Krishna grants the divine eye to Arjuna, and Sanjaya is able to see the universal form through Arjuna's eyes. He's describing what is Arjuna seeing, right? So Arjuna, first Sanjaya tells what is Arjuna seeing by that, right? And basically, Arjuna sees that the Lord is everything, right? So then Arjuna describes what he is seeing, right? So there are three phases identified. One is expression of wonder, then expression of fear, then expression of devotion. So those three are there. And Arjuna asks a question in between, Akhya hime kohimam, right? Like, so, oh Lord, who are you, right? With this terrible form, Ugra Rupa, right? He says, and then Krishna says, Kalosmi, I am time, right? So that is Krishna's answer to Arjuna's question. Those come in between. And then Arjuna requests Krishna to withdraw this universal form. It is so terrifying. And then Lord comes back to his normal form. And then Arjuna then glorifies the devotion. And then Krishna gives a summary. The 11th chapter, 55th shloka is a very, very important shloka. Even Shankaracharya says this is the summary of the Gita, right? Shankaracharya tells that this 11th shloka, 55th shloka, 11th chapter, 55th shloka as the summary of the entire Gita. So that's a very important shloka. So basically, Krishna says, he who does work for me alone, has me as the goal, is devoted to me, free from attachment, bears enmity towards no creature, he enters into me, right? So this is again a summary of the entire Gita. Very important shloka. Now, after this, in the 12th chapter, the whole thing is summarized. And so the 12th chapter is called also Bhakti Yoga. So Arjuna asks a question. This we have already seen elaborately, right? So we will look at it very briefly. We are already out of time. So I'll just give a recap of already on full 2 entire lectures we discussed this, right? 12th chapter. So you can go and listen to that recording, right, for the full thing. So it is very simple. Like Arjuna asks who is better, right? Who worship Saguna Ishvara or Nirguna Ishvara. Krishna says Saguna Ishvara Upasakas are better because they will be able to worship easily and thing. And he says, like for spirituality without religion, right? He describes that first. He says, yes, that is possible, but then it is very difficult for ordinary people. And then because the prerequisites are there. And then what is Gita's recommendation? These 2 important shlokas, right? Etu sarvani karmani mayi sanyasya matparaha ananyeneva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate, right? So having me as the goal, one who offers all actions to me and meditates upon me with concentration, to such a person whose mind is fully soaked in me, I will free him from the ocean of samsara. So this is the entire crux of the entire Madhyama Shatkam, right? So basically, do all your work with the Lord as the goal and meditate upon the Lord, and the Lord basically like develop this Mayi Avesita Chetasam. That's what he says, right? The mind which is fully soaked in the Lord. And then he says, I will take care of the rest. So freeing from the ocean of samsara is possible only by knowledge. And as we saw in the 10th chapter, like that knowledge is given by the Lord. So the 10th chapter, 11th shloka, we saw that if we worship the Lord will give knowledge. And by that, he will free us. That is how it is. Okay. And then he tells like the about how to meditate upon the Lord, right? We have seen this. And then the sequence of sadhana is summarized. And then gives a list of the traits of the Parabhakta, right? So the characteristics of a Bhakta, right? Starting from Adveshta Sarva Bhutanam, right? That 7 shlokas describe the Bhakta. And then finally he summarizes, he gives the glory of the teaching and says, one who follows this immortal dharma with faith and devotion, with faith and devotion, with me as the supreme goal, such a person is exceedingly dear to me. So this is the summary of the entire this 12th chapter, right? So this is the Madhyama Shatkam. So just as I told you, the Prathama Shatkam says work for work's sake, talks about Nishkama Karma, and the Madhyama Shatkam is love for love's sake, Nishkama Bhakti. So that is the essence of these two. And in general, this is complete. This completes the Gita knowledge. As you see, like the whole thing is, the crux is a very simple, and it is just that the same thing is repeated, developed upon again and again. And so I hope you are able to get a broad picture of what has been there in the first 12 chapters. The rest of the 6 chapters is covering again one more round of summary, covering some miscellaneous points. And then in those days, Sankhya was very popular. So, integrating and Sankhya and Vedanta, like both the 13th chapter and 15th chapter, like does a lot of work on, merging, integrating Sankhya and Vedanta, which were two popular systems of thought at the time of the Gita. So, and then like 17th chapter talks about like a lot of sadachara, a lot of how to follow, good things to follow in life, dharma, and it's a lot of things. So maybe like we will see like some other time we can, if time permits, we will quickly go through those 6 chapters in sometime in the future. But this is sufficient to give a strong foundation in the Gita. Any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, then we can chant Om Shanti and we'll end. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.